Good morning. Good morning, Breakfast Club family. This is Joe Shoup. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. How's everybody doing today? Having a little difficulty. I see your notes up here, but it's showing something different in the room. So do me a favor, even if you've said good morning already, just throw a note in there. Let me know you're there. What's that say? This is what I'm seeing. My chat shows so, I assume. Shirley, let's see what this stuff is saying here. Yep, it says you're there. Good morning. There we go. Okay, we're all on. Okay, good enough. There we go. Don't know why my other room is not showing something, so hang in there for just a second here. I'm going to redo something here. Try something different here. Yep, there we go. Now I see it. Okay, good enough. All right, well, welcome everybody. Let's get started right away. Mark's going to join us in a little while, I assume. He's having a little difficulty on his computer here. Anyway, let's take a look. Let's take a gander at what we're talking about here. You know, most people that do three-way calls, they normally prepare it. They realize you're going to bring someone to them. So let's go over that process. Number one is you're talking to someone. Everybody has a different opinion about how to, well, let's say many have the different opinions about how to contact a prospect. Some people use a sizzle call. So they'll call a prospect, whether they know them or don't know them, and they will play a call for them. They'll ask them if they're, interested in listening to something, and they do. Okay, whatever the language they use to get them to listen, then a person three-ways them in, listens to it, asks them a few questions to find out if there's an interest level or what the interest level is. So, that's a start. Some people use that sizzle call. Some people don't. Some people use emails and they send out a piece of information. By the way, if you would write in, tell me if you can hear me. I don't have a headset on. So let me know if the headset will make a difference. And I think I'll just put it in anyway. Some people will use an email and just send out, lots of emails and wait for somebody to respond. Tell me if that's better. Looks like I have my mic in and should be a little better. That sounds better. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Josiah. All right. As you know, this is basic stuff. You have to contact people somehow. We operate differently than a corner store. Corner stores have advertising, they have signs, they notify the community, and people get to know that you're there. In our business, we're worldwide, nationwide, and you have to find a process that's good for you. Is it calling people and putting them on a sizzle call? Is it using an email system, what they call a contact manager and autoresponder, sending out invitation letters, waiting for someone to fill out a capture page, and then contacting them? Or maybe you pick up the phone and call people cold from a list that you bought or a list that you have, and you invite them to look at the information. Now, whatever way you do that, there is still a process. Even when they say, yes, I've seen it, and yes, my interest level is an 8, 9, 7, whatever it is going to be, 10, you still have something else to do. And if you're skipping the next step, this director call step, you're making a mistake. Because the individual on the other end, the prospect, must feel A, comfortable, B, they must trust you. And it's hard if you don't know the person to try to figure out in our industry, and is this real? Is this real? Am I can I trust this person? Because we get these phone calls all the time about looking at something. Some people use voice broadcasting. Very effective way to contact people. They automatically hear a message, push a button, it says they're interested, and you call them back. I had a long talk with Lloyd Merrifield this week, and interestingly enough, he has, let's call them secretaries. They're not really secretaries, but people who do the voice broadcasting, call people back, and they set an appointment. Much like we teach in the class is that you don't say much. You just set the appointment for the director who's going to do that call for you. So this is a process you have to learn. Regardless of how you're going to do that, in my opinion, you have to have a director that's let's use the word qualified, who's comfortable, and knows what they're doing. They have a pattern of behavior, a conversation that has a pattern to it. And there should be an objective for that director. And let's again say it's a three-way call. I call it a director's call because the purpose of the director is to get that person, get some questions answered, but initially it's an interview that the director gets his questions answered. And I'm going to cover that with you to make sure you understand why that is so. We're not here to convince someone, even if we have someone that has, an interest level of 10, we're still not supposed to be on that director call explaining compensation plans. That's why we have all the material that we have within the company to be able to direct them to the information. So I think the first question we put out there is, do you really understand what a director call is? And when you know the process, there are two people involved in that director call, three really, the prospect, but the affiliate who's introducing the director. Do you know how to do that properly? Do you know how to be quiet once you do that? There's a pattern of behavior that should take place. There is a system in place in our group that lets the affiliate know what the behavior is. And me, personally, growing up in this industry, I wanted to know what that director was going to do. I think we've all experienced it. If you've been in this industry long enough, you've experienced calls where you've three-wayed someone into a director, into a manager, into an upline. And when you were done, you were basically sorry you did it. Now, I'm not knocking anybody. I just know that occurs. I'm sure that has happened to people in the past. We have some really good people and uplines in this business that know how to handle a director call, but we also have people who want to do it and aren't educated enough to do it. So be careful who you select. So as we move through the process, and let's make an assumption, regardless of whether or not you used a voice broadcast, whether you used a contact manager system, an invitation system, an autoresponder, and they've responded to a letter, they've looked at your website, on a voice broadcast, they've seen nothing. They've heard a couple of minute message, and then the let's call it the secretary makes the phone call back and sets the appointment for the director, and not answering any questions. Once again, this is another process and part that you need to understand. You can't tell a person on that call, I'm not answering your questions, I'm just going to get you a director. You can't say it like that. Just think of yourself when you're making a phone call to whatever company and someone tells you like that. There's a way to answer the question without giving them too much information. So regardless of whether or not this is a voice broadcast, a cold market call, a friend of yours, the process of handing them to a director has to be professional. The person on the other end has to have confidence that you know what you're doing. And on top of that, in the back of their mind, if they're thinking about coming to your company, then they have to know what they're going to do is also going to be simple and easy. And the handing over to a director is very, very simple. So the process looks like this. And let me just preface it all with, this is not stuff I made up. This is 22 years of experience. And in my early days, with today, you know, a lot of people recognize the names when I tell them who we worked with in those days and who taught us to do these things. And if you notice in the email that I sent, it talks about doing it professionally, looking like a professional, not winging it. So when you hand over a call, if I were to call Dan Boomer and had a three-way for Dan, what I would do is, first of all, make sure Dan was aware that I was going to call him. And when I went and spoke with Dan and said, Dan, are you ready? I have Tom on the other line, and brought that call together just to make sure. Obviously, you would say, Tom, you're there. Dan, you are there. And the first thing that you want to do is make sure that Dan is going to be comfortable knowing what this person Dan has to know for sure that this person has seen something, but Dan's also going to ask a question to that prospect. So when I hand it over to Dan, I am going to say, Tom, this is Dan Girolamo. Dan has been in the industry for, I don't know, let's call it 15 years. He's been very successful helping people, teaching people, and helping them have a successful business from home. That's all you have to say about your leader. That's all that's necessary. You don't need to go through credentials, income, he's the biggest in the company, all that. It's just a background, an introduction. Tom, it's Dan Girolamo. Dan has been in the industry. He's one of our leaders in the company. He has been very successful teaching people how to have a successful business from home. And Dan, this is Tom Smith. Tom has looked at, and whatever he has done, he has looked at our website. He was here. He was there. Wherever it was that Tom has looked. Now, Dan knows now that he has seen something. Okay, so he has looked at this information. He has, I've spoken to him earlier. It looks like we have a match, and I thought you might have a few questions for Tom. Now, notice the process that I didn't say to Tom, this is Dan. He's going to answer all of your questions for you. Dan is going to answer questions for him, but the process that's going to take place here, the first thing that's going to happen is Dan is going to interview Tom. We want Tom to know we're a professional organization and that we have some questions for Tom. We're not here to beg Tom to come with us. And that's why the director dialogue is so important, not to sit there all of a sudden, talk about the news, the weather, where did you live? Oh my gosh, it's great. You're going to love our company. Everything's going to be wonderful. You just join us and you'll see. You can't have that attitude as a professional manager, director, and representative of our company. What you have to have is a manager mentality. And that is Dan's first question to that person is going to be, Tom, nice to meet you. Now I have a quick question for you. What is it that Joe said that caused us to get together like this? In other words, what do you know about our company so far? The reason that's so important is Dan needs to know right from that person's mouth what it is he understands about Carrot Bars. Because I could have told Dan he was on the website, he was over here, he did that, I spoke to him all week. Dan still doesn't know what that man is thinking, because here's a great thing to write down. Just because you're talking don't mean they're listening. So I could have told Tom about the company. He could have seen the website. I don't know if he jumped around the website. I don't know what he really saw, and Dan doesn't know that either. So wouldn't it be important for Dan to understand what this fellow knows? Remember, it is about thinking. It is about understanding the process. We can't just get excited because someone's on the other end of the phone and think that they know everything. We have to find out what they know. That's why it's called an interview. Let's find out what Tom actually knows. So Dan will say to him, what is it that Joe said that caused us to get together? In other words, what do you know about Karatbars so far? He's going to tell you whether he saw this, he saw that. Most of the time, those individuals say, well, I don't know a whole lot, but I did see this, and I know this is about gold, and I know it's about such and such. That director now gets an idea, and he has to think, okay, what does this person really know? What direction do I really need to go? Well, we're still going to interview. I know Joe asked you this, Tom, but I need to know for myself. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your interest level here in moving forward with our company or getting more information? And Dan will then know where we are. If this person says 2, I mean, I think that, you know, we kind of understand that we're not going to spend a lot of time with someone who's a 2. We can give them more information and maybe they'll get to an 8, 9, or 10. But at that stage, it's, you know, Dan understands where we are. So if he says it's a 7, 8, or 9, the next process would be, I would want to know this. Now think about this for yourself logically. Wouldn't you want to know who that person is? Wouldn't you want to know what do you currently do? Wouldn't you want to get to know the person a little bit? You don't have to ask them where they lived and, you know, my sister used to live up there as well and all that kind of stuff. What you need to know is, who are you? Are we really going to spend time with this person? I mean, just think about for a minute. How many times did you bring somebody aboard, spent lots of hours sending them information, talking to them on the phone, explaining more about Karatbars, telling them how they're going to get paid, tell them how it all works. They should be in, what plan are they going to get? I mean, all that stuff that I can tell you that people spend weeks doing that with people and spend hours and hours to find out 3 weeks later that they have decided they're not working with you. And probably be one of the things that you missed was just because you were talking didn't mean they were listening. So you don't know what you're saying to someone and whether it's sinking in and really where they are. So it's important that we interview and find out where they are. And even at this early stage, it's not a bonding stage. I know we have been taught in the industry for a long time that we bond with people. We pick up, we try to be wonderful and nice to them. That's okay when you get to know them. When they're joining the company, when you're working with them regularly, it's okay to get to know them. But at this stage of the conversation, you're not trying to bond here. Yes, you're trying to find out information, and certainly you're being cordial, but you're also being directive, high directive, as Jennifer says. What do you currently do? And the person tells you what they're doing. I've been a machinist. I've been a carpenter. I've been a secretary. I've been a receptionist for. I've been an assistant for the. Great. And remember what we talked about is, were they really interested in a career change for the money, for the right money? So at that stage, finding out what they did, wouldn't you want to know how long they did that? They might have been a secretary for 2 days and it's their first job. Maybe it's the first time they've been there. So let's find out, how long have you been doing that? The important part here is to get them to talk. Let's ask questions that gets us information so we know where to go. But remember I said in that email, do you have a system? Is there a pattern you're following, or are you winging it? Are you trying to make up the questions as you go along? If you find a pattern, you will be much more comfortable. You won't have any fear that you don't know where to go. You won't have that person taking control of you and asking all kinds of questions about Karatbars. That's not the time for him to do that, or her. So we're finding out now how long they've done it. Now, here's a really important question. Now that we know what they've done and how long they've done it, where are they going to see them? Where do they see themselves going in life? Wouldn't you want to know whether or not you had somebody who was high energy, low energy, had some enthusiasm, had some ambition, dreams and goals? Would you want to know that? Certainly you would want to know that. If you had your choice to work with a person who had ambition and one who had very little ambition, didn't really care, was just kind of listening, wouldn't you want to know that? So here's a very effective, important question to ask them. Tom, let me ask you this question. And it's always okay to say, let me ask you. Let them know that you're doing a basic interview. Where do you see yourself, Bob or Tom, in 5 years from now? In other words, if the next 5 years look like the last 5 years, do you see yourself getting ahead or behind? I promise you, you will get that person talking about themselves, their dreams, what they've seen in the past, where they've been, whether they saw themselves as a failure, whether they see themselves getting ahead. Most of the people in our economy, the average person is going to say, well, if it looks like the last 5, I think, I need to improve. I need to get better. And I want to do that. You will hear in their conversation whether or not this person is right for us. Remember, it's not just the person. We're trying to convince somebody that we're right for them. What about if they're right for us? Wouldn't you want to know whether that person really had enough ambition to learn what it takes to be successful with us? And I think it's the mistake a lot of people make, is thinking just because they have a live person on the call that they have a candidate. We're on a candidate search. That's what I call it, a candidate search. Do we have the right person? And at that point, we start to get the idea of where this person is headed. What are they thinking about their future? So that's a great question. Where do you see yourself? In other words, the next 5 years look like the last 5 years. Do you see yourself getting ahead or behind? And they'll answer that for you. Now, at this stage, you've got enough information to move forward. You really do. You don't need to know any more. You've found out what they did, how long they've been doing it, and where they see themselves going ahead, and so on. Now we can talk a little bit about the company. And at this point, you can refresh their memory. Well, Frank, let me tell you a little bit about how we work, what our company is about. And at that point, the director could be saying, the company's been around for about 4 or 5 years now. We are in over 120 countries worldwide. Now, I'd like to say this. Our company, is really in the precious metals field, or you can say we're in the e-commerce field, much like Amazon. But Tom, what we're really looking for, we're looking for someone who's honest, ambitious, and works well with others. Does it sound like you? So you can give them a little bit of information, but you're not supposed to be on this call describing all about Karatbars. You know why? Because we have tools that do that. So at this stage, we're asking the questions. We have taken control of that conversation to find out who this is and whether we feel good about working together. And we're going to work together even if the person says, no, I want to go, and you felt like, well, they're not going to really be working real hard. They don't sound like a lot of ambition here. You still want to work with the person. You're still going to register them. You're not going to tell them, well, you don't sound right for us. You're going to say, fine. All right. Now, at this stage, once you have found that out, here's a really, really good question to close this conversation from your perspective, from your end, because we're going to get to their questions in a second. Once you have found out what they're about, where they saw themselves, where they see themselves, it would be a good idea to know if they want to move forward, right? And here's a great question to ask them. So, Tom, now that you know a little bit about our company, what we're really looking for, with a little bit of coaching and training and a lot of support, can you see yourself doing what it takes to learn how to be successful here with our company? That's a temperature taker. You have a thermometer. You're asking them, do you see yourself? In other words, maybe on that end, they're going, I can't wait till this conversation's over. Maybe they want it over with. We don't know that. Just because you're talking don't mean they're listening. We don't know what they really heard. This is one thing they will hear, and they're going to have to respond to. With a little bit of training and coaching and a lot of support, can you see yourself doing what it takes to be successful and to learn how to be successful with our company? When they say yes, why would you do anything else as far as explanation with the company? We have educational things. Lloyd Merrifield has probably the most educational sites you're going to have. You can find comp plans, videos, explanations, how our gold compares to everybody else. It's all there. Why would you, as a manager, have to sit for 30 minutes, not even knowing if this person's going to be successful? Let's find out if they can follow direction. They just told us that, yes, they see themselves learning what it takes to be successful. So let's move on with them. So what I would like you to do, Dan says to Joe, I'd like you to get Tom registered with the company. Of course, Tom, you know that it is a free registration, a free account with our company. And Joe's going to guide you through the process of, obtaining a package with us, and Joe will explain that to you. Now, if you as a director want to explain that, that's fine. I think that basically that information is there. They're going to learn how to do it. They're going to spend a half hour or so. They're going to figure it out. They're going to talk to me or Joe about that. If you want to explain that, I still think that's okay. Now, at this particular stage, telling them, because what are you, a director? You are to be directing that person to registration, finding out if they're a fit. Now we're going to get to Tom. Do you have any questions for me before Joe gets you registered? You're making an assumption that we have, he said, yes, I can see myself doing what it takes. That's the final close for you. We know now we have a registration. Are they going to be successful? We don't know that yet. And here's the final thing I say. Actually say this prior to asking, do you have any questions? Tom, I don't know if we have a match. It really does look like we have a match here. It looks like we can work together, but the only way we're going to know this is if we lock arms, and we work together for a period of time. And we can check in the next 6 weeks or so and see if we're still, on the same page. Do we still have this match? If we do, we're going to continue forward. If we decide at that point that we don't have a match, then we can probably shake hands and wish each other well. Is that fair to you, Tom? That takes the pressure off saying, oh, please hurry, sign. Look, we don't know. Honestly, you don't know. You don't know if this person's going to work out, right? So let's tell them up front. Not sure if we're going to work out. It sounds like we have this match, but let's lock arms together for a period of time and make that decision. Are we really right? We're going to get you the education. There's a lot of information Joe's going to direct you to. There are opportunity calls during the week. There are educational calls during the week. And I want you to lock into those. And we'll check in and make sure that you're getting everything that you need. In the meantime, you'll have my number for support as well. So, Tom, do you have any questions for me now? Now, he might ask you about the comp plan. So if he wants me to explain the comp plan in detail, I'm not doing that. I'm going to say, Tom, that's a great question. Here is the answer to compensation. We get paid, Tom, in direct proportion to the effort we put forth. In other words, if you work hard, chances are you're going to make a lot of money. If you don't work at all, Tom, you probably won't make any money. We're looking for people who are honest and ambitious, remember? And if you work at this, Tom, you'll be like other people who work in this business, that you will make the money you're looking for. Don't know how much you're looking for at this stage. We can talk about that later. But the bottom line is we get paid in direct proportion to the effort we put forth. And it isn't that true. I mean, ask yourself that here. I'm not asking Tom. I'm asking Tom. I'm asking you as the affiliate. Doesn't that make sense? You'll get that in our training. The answer to most of the questions is that's no problem. Give them a short answer and tell them, by the way, you're going to get that in our training. We have that all week long. And I'll be glad to answer those things. I got a video for you, an audio and video for our compensation plan. I want you to go over that, study that a little bit, get back to me with some questions. I don't mind telling them that we have a weekly, dual system where you will get paid. But again, the bottom line is if you look at the whole thing, you get paid in direct proportion to the effort you put forth, right? So Tom might ask a question about the company and, how long they've been around, and do I take possession of the gold? Do I buy the weekly pay, and what plan? All these things can be answered if the director is qualified. Feel comfortable when you select a person that's going to be, on the other end with your prospect, that when you get done, that prospect says, wow, that guy was good. I got the information I need. I need to do some homework, and which is true. We all need to do homework. So as Tom, not most of the time, there's not a lot of questions when you conduct your interview like that. There's not a lot. But you have to remind them to get into the training. Now, it's going to be my responsibility when Dan turns that call back to me and says, Joe, I want you to get Tom registered with the company. And here's what I'd also like you to do. After the registration, immediately following the completion of that registration, Joe, I want you to call me back so I can welcome Tom to the company. I want to be able to say congratulations. Just remember, we're not there yet. We could be done that call, and he could say to me, Joe, listen, I'm going to hesitate here a minute. I'm going to talk to my wife. I'm going to talk to my spouse. I'm going to talk to whomever. I want to look at some stuff before I do it. Maybe he didn't tell Dan that he wasn't going to do it, but he's probably going to tell me if he's not going to. So we don't know that. So I'd like Dan to say to me, Joe, I want you to give me a call back so I can welcome him to the company. Then we're going to know for sure we've locked in that part. And you can have a more cordial, loose conversation at that point. Congratulations, welcome to the company. Now, the Joe's going to guide you to all that education, as I said to you. Start out with, there's a marketing system that we use. There's a plan, there's videos, and so on and so forth, and get them into the system. So if you don't have any more questions for me, Tom, Joe, congratulations, or Tom, congratulations, welcome to our company, but I do want to hear from you right after registration. So I want to make sure that's locked in. Now, I don't know if anybody has any questions at all. I have not been looking at the chart for questions.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Mark.
Okay. Let's talk about that individual that's just not quite interested, and we need to get out of this call in the proper way, because that's taught in the class, and I think it's very pertinent that we want to get out of that call the right way, because you never know what's going to happen down the line. So how do we do that?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. Thanks for bringing it up. Many people, I've watched this, and I think in the early days, I certainly was caught up in this, Mark. You're talking, and regardless of whether it's the director call or whether it's an initial call to find out if there's interest, there's a way to dismiss the person. Because one of the things I think, Mark, that people miss in their conversations is you're really looking for an opportunity. I know this is going to sound strange, but you are looking for the opportunity to dismiss someone, because you're not always going to get that interested person, high, level person. You're just not. And you might be talking to them and they have very little interest. You have to find a way, to relieve yourself from that conversation and just get out of it. And there's a nice way to do it. You can't just tell them, well, look, I don't think we have a match here, goodbye. How do you effectively and professionally, that's what Mark's asking, how do you effectively and professionally get away from the conversation when you realize that this person is not what we're looking for, or they say that, look, I don't know if this is for me? The answer is always sure. That's not a problem, Frank. I realize, that we're both looking for something. But let me ask you a question. And again, it's that let me ask you a question. Who do you know that would be interested in a career change for the right money? And just shut up and don't say another word until they answer. And most of the time, they're going to say, I don't know anyone like that, because they're not going to do it themselves, right? So they're certainly not going to recommend somebody. Some people do. But the question is, sure, let me ask you that question, Mark. Who do you know that would be interested in a career change for the right money? And you emphasize the word would. And they say, well, I don't know. Okay, well, could you do me a favor? Because you're going to close the call now, right? You're going to get away from this. Would you do me a favor, Tom? You keep my number handy, and if you do come across someone that would be interested in a career change and looking for a six-figure income, would you mind sending them my way? And he says, no, I wouldn't mind. You'd say, okay, well, thank you, and have a great. Oh, by the way, Tom, you always jump in and do that. Oh, Tom, by the way, do me one last favor. Please don't send me anybody that you wouldn't hire yourself. It's not time to be happy and smiling and laughing and acting like a joke. This is a serious business that we're in. And you all know that, because if you're not producing in your business what you want to produce, income-wise, business-wise, affiliates-wise, if you're not doing that, then obviously it's probably time to change some tactics. So don't try this initial call as all this wonderful, friendly, let's bond. It's not necessary. In fact, it probably scares the individual on the other end and chases them away, thinking, oh, they're just trying. They just want something from me. So closing that, Mark, is very, very simple. It's easy. Look for the opportunity. When it arises and you realize for sure this isn't going to work for me, then very politely ask them, who do you know that would be interested in a career change for the right money? Well, I don't know anybody. Okay, great. Do me a favor. Keep my number handy. And if you do come across someone that would be interested in a career change and looking for a six-figure income, would you mind sending them my way, Tom? No, I wouldn't mind. Okay. Well, Tom, just one more thing. Please don't send me anybody you wouldn't hire yourself. And usually they laugh and you say, sure. Okay, well, good. Thanks, Tom. You have a great day. Mark, I have gotten people call me back and said to me, you spoke to my friend Tom and he said you were looking for somebody. Now, will it happen all the time? No, but why not put the feeler out there? But that's how you do it, Mark. That's how you close the call. That's how you get away from a person who doesn't, if you realize there's no interest on both parts. What is the bridge you use? Here's a question up here. I see. What is the bridge you use to get to the director? Baron, I don't know if you heard the beginning, but let me repeat that very quickly. The bridge. I'm not sure what you mean by the bridge. Do you mean dialogue, or do you mean the technology? Do you mean a telephone? Do you mean computer? What do you mean? What is the bridge? Type that in for me before I answer that. We're running a little bit late, so I want to try to get that in there, Baron.
While he's doing that, Joe, we know there's a proper way to introduce the director.
Yeah, we covered that earlier. It's on the tape here.
Okay.
Yeah, we covered that. I went through it. That's what I'm trying to find out from Baron. Is that what you mean? The dialogue to introduce the director? Is that what you're asking me, Baron? We have a 30-second delay from your typing and entering in here. So once you push the dialogue, good. Here's what happens. I have Dan as my director. Dan knows that it's coming. I called Dan. Dan, are you there? Yes, you're that there. Okay, good. So I merge the call now. I make sure they're both there. Tom, you're there? Yes. Dan, you're there. Okay. The first thing you do is you introduce the director. Tom, this is Dan Giramo. Dan is one of the leaders and trainers in our company. He's been with the company for over 4 years. In fact, he's been in the industry for 15 years. Now, you have to work that dialogue out, that part, to find out who the director is and what their experience is, right? Dan has been very successful teaching people how to have a successful business from home. End of story. There's the first part of the bridge. There's no need to do anything else. I've got to get this over to Dan quickly. I've just explained who he was. Leader, trainer in the company, teaches people how to be successful from home, right? Now, the next part is Dan introducing, me telling Dan about Tom. Dan, this is Tom Smith. Dan has been on our websites. He's listened to this. He listened to a sizzle call, whatever it is. I feel as though we have a match, Dan, and I thought you might have some questions for Tom. You always say, I thought, Dan, you might have some questions for Tom. That immediately puts it in an interviewing mode. That creates the atmosphere for the interview for Dan. Now, we're going to get questions answered, as you just saw, from the prospect. But initially, it's Dan taking control. That's the bridge. This is Dan Giramo. Dan, this is Tom. and Tom has done this, this, and this. I feel as though we have a match, and I thought you might have some questions for Tom. That puts Dan right in the position to take control, to say, sure, Dan. And then, of course, he goes into that dialogue of, what is it Joe said that caused us to get together? In other words, what do you know about our company so far? So, Mark, I haven't mentioned anything about the class. What you mentioned, this stuff comes from the class, and that's important stuff. This is a segment of the communication class that we teach. So that all of this is organized in a educational format. But today we wanted to have you understand, look, we're getting into a season of recruiting now. We're going into July is a vacation month for most people, but we're heading towards August. Why not get ready? And you know what? The important thing is, it's not to go find a director that is qualified, that knows this stuff. Here's the important part. This is why we did this now. We had this long talk about this. It's about you becoming a director. The reason your business is where you are is because of you, not because of the company. Look, I learned a long time ago, you are in life where you are because of your believing, and you're going to be tomorrow where your believing takes you. Tomorrow is your future for Karatbars. Tomorrow, today as well, is today is preparation. Tomorrow is the event. I say, get ready to be a director. Learn how to be that professional person who knows how to support your people. I'm going to tell you something right now. For the last 18 years of teaching this communication class, the last 22 years in this industry, I have spent all that time not so much in a diligent search for, but always looking, always had my eyes open for a partner. And I don't mean an affiliate who came in who I got attached to and worked together. I'm talking about a true partner that understood the teachings of Bob Safford, that wanted to learn a different way to do business, a different way to be professional, not the begging mode that this industry has developed over 60, 70 years. I happen to have a mentor many, many years ago, a couple of them, who taught me principles of business. Even though I came from a business world of owning my own business, I still had to learn what this business was. And when Mark Stevens arrived, I knew something was different. And I can tell you now that if you listen to the conversations I have with him, the way he talks to his people now, and I'm going to let him tell you about that, and the business meetings that they have every week, the way he talks to people now, I can tell you he followed the pattern. A guy who's been in the industry a long time, who had to make some changes. And he knows this is true. I had to make changes. But he spent his last couple of years teaching other people how to do that, teaching him how to be a director. Mark knows exactly how to do the dialogue we talked today. And when I say exactly, I am talking exactly. He knows how to support someone who brings him a three-way call. And you know how long that call takes? We haven't mentioned this part. Mark, tell them how long a director call actually takes.
3 to 5 minutes at the most.
Now, I know people want to stay on the call for 20 minutes. If a person asks those questions, tell me more about, and they prolong it, I can see it going beyond that 5 minutes at times, Mark. I can see that happening, certainly. But generally speaking, when we do this call, you're looking at 5 minutes tops. We're in and out of there, and we get registration and move on. And then they get in the education. And because the answer is we're going to learn all that in education. Certainly, I'll answer some of that for you, but you're going to get all that in detail in our trainings, because we have a training session. You don't go to IBM and have the interviewer tell you all about your job and how it all works. What he does is he gets you in training, right? But these are the things you learn in this class that was developed over 20 years ago, 18. So it's important, but I'm telling you now, I am thrilled and tickled pink, so to speak, that Mark Stevens is a Bob Safford now. Knows exactly what to teach, how to teach it, how to do a three-way. And it took a long time to have somebody, follow exactly what you wanted them to do, or exactly what Safford taught. It probably took a long time to find someone to follow Safford 20 years ago, because not everybody did. But it makes sense when you look at this from a business standpoint, Mark. It makes sense. But so, I can openly say thank you, because I know he doesn't see me smiling on the other end. When we're talking the other night, he was telling me the dialogue he was having with people and so on, and I'm just smiling. And every once in a while, I'll throw it and go, "Hey, does it sound familiar?" I go, "Yeah, you sound like Safford now." But that's happened over time, and it's not new for Mark. He picked stuff up like this, went to the class, picked it up, and went, "Oh, I see it." And you know what? He made the change. His ego didn't get in the way. He didn't say, "Oh, I know it. I've been here for 15 years." He didn't do that. He learned what we talked about today, how to do a three-way. Not because I was the big teacher, it's because Bob Safford of 50 years of business taught us, and Art Williams and Charlie Bruce. And that's what you have to understand, is that this education comes from the best of the best. We just happen to pass it on now. And what you should be doing now is learning how to be a director, learning how to support your team, because that's what this business is about. It's about team. It's about developing people who want to manage a successful business from home and teaching them the principles, taking them through the process, not through your dialogue, but through through your education, spending hours with somebody on the phone trying to no, you send them to class. There's plenty of stuff out there. We'll have more on this. We cover this a lot in the class. So there's some things up there. I guess Shirley's answering. Thanks, Shirley. But Mark, as a partner, thank you.
You're welcome. You know what, Joe? I want to add something to that, because I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks ago or whatever, I had put a challenge to people that this sheet that Dan that Boomer came up with, this 100, he calls it 100 units. And I remember I told Cecil Piper, and I told somebody, I said, you know what? Even though I know that it can and it does work, I said, I'm gonna prove that it doesn't work. And so I started that. Nobody knows it, but I started that July the 1st. And we in the first week of July. And I've been talking to people, and at this point, this is not to brag or anything about that, but at this point, doing units of work the first week, as you know, Joe, we got a gold member in, and right now I'm talking to a guy about a VIP package possibly. But my point is simply this, is that the same communication that we use in the class is the same communication that I use in the street, on the phone, no matter where I am, because it works everywhere and it all ties in. So my point is this: if you take that sheet and you do 100 units and you have gone through this communication class and you understand what it's saying and how it works, and understand that when you're getting somebody to a director, you are a director in training. In other words, know who you are and what position that you're in. You have a lethal combination. So I just want everybody that's on the phone to think about that. Those of you that have been through the communication class, and those of you that might be considerate, get that 100-man sheet, or make your own block of 100. The key is you want to do it in 100 things, and prove that it doesn't work, and see what happens to your business. Just test it. Just test it and see what happens. The thing is,
let me read what Dan put up here. And basically, the prospect has to qualify for your team. Absolutely. Now, we don't have to be arrogant about that. Through the process that we just taught this morning, you will find that out. Will they qualify? And that qualifying question, the temperature taker, is, with a little coaching and training and a lot of support. In other words, let them know that we're going to get a lot of support here. Can you see yourself doing what it takes to learn how to be successful here at our company at Carrot Parts? That is the temperature taker. That's the final question that says they're moving forward, right? And it only took a couple of minutes to get there. And I hope Dan doesn't mind me saying this. Listen, I've known Dan a long time. Dan is one of the biggest leaders in this company. Would it surprise you to know that Dan took the communication class a couple of weeks ago? Why? Just to see what we were doing, to see what other things that he could either contribute or add to his toolbox. We're all learning. We're all students of the game here. We all have to keep learning things. You know, and we have, I'll just make this quick announcement, Mark. There's something very, very big coming in the next, and I don't mean with Karatbars, but just through marketing, marketing tools and things that are coming. And pay attention, because this is one of the biggest things that you're going to be able to add to your toolbox. Trust me, this is very, very big. Dan knows a little bit about it, and it's very, very exciting what's coming up. A tool to help you move forward like this. Tools, I should say. And I'm not going to say any more about it. Just keep your ears open. It's happening within a week. So, but Dan's right. You know what? You can't be on this call trying to convince someone. Are you trying to convince? Are you trying to give facts so that they now understand and now they'll join you? You can't have that attitude. What you have to have when you go into that call is, okay, let's find out if this person really is. Let's not get too excited. Let's find out if they can follow directions. That's what Safford said. The most important thing was, will this person follow directions? Because if they don't, you might as well forget it. They're not going to be here in 2 or 3 weeks. Let's see if they can follow. Let's find out through this little process, will this be a follower who will turn into a leader? We all know that good followers are good leaders. We all have to stay in the mode of following. And Mark's right. One of the things you learn in this class is this. Who am I? Who am I when I'm making this phone call? And that's really a critical thing to understand when communicating with people, to understand who you are. You've heard it many times say, don't give too much information. Don't say this, don't say that. The truth is, down to the bottom basic foundation, who am I when I make this call? And if you keep that in mind and you discover who you are when you do this, you won't make the mistake. You won't have problems of not being able to answer questions. And as we take people through that class, Mark, they understand, you know, we list every possible question you could have and give you the answer very quickly and teach you a technique on how to move from one question to the next and move forward and stay in control. It's important so you don't feel, you know, that you are losing the person. You don't feel out of control. You don't feel like, you know, rejection. You don't feel the rejection, because there isn't any. We do the rejection. Anyway, I think that, you know, people understand, you know, when you start to understand telephone techniques and how to, what part of a conversation are you in? You know, where are you in the conversation? And there's 5 steps to this conversation. So these things you learn. And anyway, see Shirley's answering some questions up here about YouTube. You're going to see this a few minutes after the call, about 15 minutes. This entire call goes up on YouTube, but plus you're going to get a notice from the system that gives you the link to go listen to it. And if you miss that, you just go to YouTube, go into Joe Shoup, find me on that bicycle, and click on videos, and it'll be there. That's how you get to that. But you should get a notice. Yeah, John, just send me an email from the email that you got from me. Yeah, we see the number up there, but you can also just send me an email, jpshoup@earthlink.net, or the New Breakfast Club at earthlink.net. Either one, the New Breakfast Club at earthlink.net. That will get you there as well. So anyway, Mark, I'll turn it over to you, and thanks for the comments, people, and the questions. If you have any questions, again, there you got the email address. Send them to me, and I think we turned on the option to put questions in if you go to the replay. So I think you can do that as well. So you can do that when you go to that replay. But you know what? Go study that replay. Go study the director call. Go prepare yourself to be a director. Don't worry about finding a director. I mean, yeah, you'd want to have that, but become a director. Learn how to do it properly so you can support your team. That's what Mark's been doing for 2 years. Learning and then training. That's important. Be a part of the team by participating. Tell me and I'll hear. Show me and I'll see. You'll see that here. We can tell you this all day long. We can show it to you here. But the bottom line is, until you get involved, you're not going to understand. So it's that phrase, that statement. Tell me and I'll hear. Show me and I'll see. But get me involved and I'll understand. That's the only way you truly understand, is involvement. You want to learn how to ride a bicycle? Get on a bike. That's getting involved. You can tell me all day how to ride it and show me by you getting on. But until I get on, I'm not really going to understand, am I? So I'll leave you with that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joe. I'll just say this last thing and we'll close out. The other bottom line is you just have to go to work. That's the bottom line. You just have to go to work. Because if you don't work these things, it won't work for you. So with that being said, peace and blessings, everyone. Go out and make it a great day. Let's not be secret agents. Let's share this opportunity. The world needs this opportunity, and we just so happen to have it, so we can do a lot of good and create a lifestyle by design by doing good. And how do we do that? Share what we have with people that we meet, people that we know, people that we meet. And if you do that, then you can grow your business and we can grow this company, because this company has a lot of things coming that some of us don't even know about. So like Joe was saying, you start it today, because tomorrow everything is coming and you want to be ready for it. So peace and blessings to you. Go out and make it a great day. We will be back here next week, same time, 12 noon, 11:55 on the Breakfast Club. So this is Mark Stevens for our host, Joe Shue, saying peace and blessings, everyone. Go out and make it a great day.